I am shooting an interview right now with Ensemble Block right outside the expo hall.
We're about to do a live interview over here with the one and only Jeff Ausdemore. We're going live over here, Jeff, so this will be rolling, and you're gonna get a behind-the-scenes look at us doing our production. We've got a couple key lights over here. We've got 3 camera setups with the one and only Carl Drum Tech. I have percussion in the house. We got Nick over in the back over here, and of course, Trent is running the camera, so enjoy the behind-the-scenes. So, Jeff, are you okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's have some fun. This is gonna be great.
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Hi everyone, welcome to Indianapolis. We are here for PASIC 2024 at the Percussive Art Society International Convention. My name is Huyen Pan, and I have the great fortune of sitting down with the one and only Jeff Ausdemore. Jeff Ausdemore,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Just such a pleasure to be here in this chaotic but beautiful environment. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
What the viewers can't see, Jeff, that we can see is a train of high schoolers making their way through. Right now, if you haven't been to this event before, we have BOA happening.
Sir.
We have all the percussionists from around the world converging in one city at the same place at the same time. And everyone has just finished a very long Friday, but the best kind of long.
Yes.
I saw Jeff earlier. He was fulfilling his judging duties.
Yes.
And let me just give a short intro for Jeff, because I know he'll be very humble about his intro, so I'll just brag on him for a second. Jeff is a consummate educator. He is a consultant. He's a performer. He's a arranger, composer, all-around Renaissance man. Pretty much anything that you need, Jeff can do it. But Jeff, could you tell everyone a little bit about just kind of your background and how would you describe what you do to everyone?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. So great to be here. My normal day job right now, I teach adjunct at a university called East Texas A&M University. And then my full-time professor job is at New Mexico State University. So I'm a visiting assistant professor.
Which is new, right?
Which is new this year. Thank you, I appreciate it.
That's exciting.
Yeah. What's really neat about that position, Way, is that my former teacher, Dr. Fred Bugbee, is now the department head, and that created this space, and he invited me to apply for that job. And so giving back at my own alma mater is very special, because those students out there, and the undergraduates and the graduate student that we have, are just hardworking, appreciative young men and women. So it's fun to teach there.
Can you describe what that full circle moment feels like for you to be coming back to your alma mater?
Great question. So as a graduate student, I was taught by the great Dr. Fred Bugbee, and that was a really transformational time in my life musically. And so the opportunity to give back in that community is surreal, and it's just very humbling as well. So I'm just very, very fortunate to be in that space.
I've told you our first encounter story many times, but I'd love to just kind of share it so that we can immortalize that moment. But I was a college junior or senior at the time, maybe, and I just come off a few seasons of marching drum corps, and you know, for the youngins out there, when you first finish, you've got that feeling of invincibility, which is great. But you also think, you're like, oh, I know how to do this. What you come to learn is being able to do something is very different than being able to teach someone how to do that. And I remember I was working with a high school drumline in the Austin area at the time, and Jeff was one of the consultants or clinicians that came in to work with the group. And what I always tell Jeff is I remember the exact exercise that he used. The students were having trouble with their first tap after an accident, as many young players do. They're learning how to control their strokes. And Jeff introduced the idea of playing that first tap as a buzz. And we worked it through Bucks 2s, Bucks 3s, and Bucks 4s. And I just remember it was a unique moment for me, because what does it feel like to be humbled because you're learning that you don't know something, but to not be offended in any way, or any of that ego that sometimes might creep in? Because Jeff has this golden touch of being able to share ideas and work with people and make everyone feel great about it. So
you're too kind.
I always tell Jeff, and that exercise has stuck with me for the last 20 plus years.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks to Mr. Ausdemore.
Happy to do so. We used to call that Windex. And so I came up with that concept at New Mexico State, in fact. So the irony of being in that space is Dr. Bugbee gave me a lot of freedom. So I treated the drum line at New Mexico State like a laboratory. All those really hardworking students that were there. So we used to do grids with buzzes. So we would do secco buzz, staccato buzz, and legato buzz. And really what it teaches us is the placement of the second note, like you said, after an accent. So all of our hand shape is really, really the place that we need to start when it comes to even rhythms. That's why if you and I don't talk about hand shape and I open and close and you're not, that means the beat is going to be a different velocity of yours. Therefore, my sound is going to be a different color and intensity of yours. And then most obviously, the note from 1 to 2 is going to be different. So starting with a similar hand shape, that's number one, but then manipulating that hand shape to be secco, staccato, or legato just takes a big, big flashlight on what is your beat placement, one and versus your one and. And then of course the pressure involved and everything. So yeah, we used to call that Windex because we would put those different texture grids in different parts of the measure. So you could really analyze why are you coming in early or late here or there.
Where does your teaching gene come from, Jeff? Because people who know your teaching know that you have this very special ability of teaching the beginners from day one, which is a very specific approach, attitude, mindset, the joy that comes of doing so, all the way to the world-class collegiate players.
Well, first of all, you're very kind for saying that, and I didn't realize I would be this uncomfortable hearing you speak so kindly. So thank you.
I'm just going to do all the bragging for Jeff that he never does. He always is very quick to pass the credit on to the next person, as a great guy like him does. So I will do all the bragging for you.
You're too kind. Well, the truth of the matter is I just try to spend time with people way, way smarter, more talented, and more experienced than me. And so I remember how I felt when I was in the presence of a Tom Hannum, of a Tom Float, of a Paul Rennick, of a Wei Yunpan, of a Dre. Anyone around me that I'm learning from, I'm secretly trying to study what their psychology is, what the structure of their verbiage is, because I could say something to this student, then you could say it almost identical, and they're going to respond to you way, way, way more efficiently.
No pun intended.
Very true. Well done. Well done, Stir. Well done.
And here all week. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, you are a dad. You are.
That's true. I'm firmly in dad joke.
I love it.
Apologies.
I love it. I love it. And so I like to study the psychology of what makes things efficient for students. And so a lot of it is attitudinal. Some of it is verbiage, and then some of it is psychological, and then some of it is mechanical. And so if you think about all those categories, the magic sauce is what I like to call the blend of art and science. If you understand the art and the science of teaching, then at some point in that recipe, then students are going to find some avenue that connects with their right brain, their left brain, their attention span, their likes, their dislikes, and how they learn. Orally, visually, kinesthetically, so on and so forth. And so I just love to study effective human beings, but in the teacher aspect, I just try to model the people that have impacted, made me feel a certain way when I'm reaching for a goal, and I want my lateral to be stronger, and I remember who impacted me to really reach to that level. I try to channel those people. Then I think about the mechanical side and all the brilliant musicians of the world, and I just try to kind of synthesize all those elements, and at the end of the day, I just lay my head on my pillow and say, you know, I failed in all these ways. What was one thing that I can build on tomorrow? That's really what it comes down to. And the silly thing that a lot of people say, but it's so true, is just standing on the shoulders of as many giants as you can find. That's really what it is. I'm just fortunate that I've been surrounded by great people.
So speaking of standing on the shoulders of giants, we share a similar lineage, having come through the same drum corps.
Sir.
The Cavaliers.
Yes, sir.
Which I didn't know we shared that until I think I watched an interview of yours with Daniel Ascari. I can't remember if that was the interview where you brought it up.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know Jeff watched Cavaliers, but we've crossed paths with a lot of the same people.
Right.
Could you talk about, what brought you to there, and then since then I know that you've taught at multiple levels, and now you've gone to the judging route and to the other side of the activity, and so take us back to just maybe you auditioning for the Cavaliers.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my first exposure to drum and bugle corps was in a drum corps called Northern Aurora, open class drum corps, and so I learned how to drum and get my hands together. I was taught by the great Rich Hogan and Brad Halls and Wayne Bovenchin and all these Michigan State people that were really talented, that were teaching the Cavaliers, like Leif Marweed and Brad Halls and so on and so forth. But I was just learning how to put my hands together, and I was very young. I was a sophomore in high school, or maybe junior by that point.
Wow.
And I loved it. I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I went to my first big show, and I saw all the other world-class drum corps, and I thought, I really want to pursue this even more. So I was looking at all kinds of other drum corps, and I got a ride down to the Cavaliers. I actually auditioned for Star of Indiana as well, and that was really fun. So I loved my experience at Star of Indiana, and I was already deep in the process with Cavaliers, and had a great time just exploring Phantom Regiment, Cavaliers, Star rather. And at that point, I just really loved the professional environment that Brett Kuhn was setting up for all of us. And that point, I believe that James Campbell, I think Jim was writing the book for us that last year, and the way that Brett and Jim were working together with the music was really neat. The way that they treated us, the environment was really professional, and I just really fit in. And so I learned a lot from the Cavaliers. And one thing that served me well, that I learned from Leif Marweed and those other folks at Cavaliers, is that if you know your physiology, if you are intimate with how your body moves and how it works, you can fit into any drum line in the world. You can make any sound that you imagine if you're open to how your physiology needs to adapt. And so it was really fun for me to change how I grip the stick, how I move through time at the Cavaliers was wildly different from Northern Aurora, but I think I was a better musician for it. The best part of the Cavaliers was just the overall psychology and just the performance experience. And I just remember how professional the drum corps behaved, and it was great. And at that point in my life, I was very, very grateful for it. And then I just needed a little bit of a change, and I was going to Michigan State University. At that point, I was just getting ready to transfer to the University of North Texas, where I had met some folks in the Blue Devils in Santa Clara, and I noticed their sound was a little different from our sound in the Cavaliers. And very much like going from Northern Aurora to the Cavaliers, I wanted that next step of I'd like to explore that sound and the way that they move through space. The way they hit the drums was different. And I remember going to their truck one night after finals and saying, "Where do you guys all go to school?" And they pretty much all said, the University of North Texas. So I packed my things and I made an audition video for Dr. Robert Chitroma, and I shifted my life to Denton, USA.
So I am from Houston originally.
Yes, sir.
And if you're from Texas, you know of the city upon a hill that is North Texas, and all the giants that have come through there. Can you talk about what it's like to study with Dr. Chitroma and then to be there?
Absolutely. The number one thing that really helped me absorb the environment at that time in my life was a conversation I had with a friend of mine in the band hall at Michigan State. I was chatting with him after wind ensemble rehearsal. We had just recorded the Percy Granger album called To the Fore. It was so much fun. We made a great recording with Ken Bloomquist. Really proud of that recording. And this gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey Jeff, I heard you're going to go to North Texas." And I said, "Yes, I'm really excited." He goes, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "Do you know anything about it?" And he said, "Yeah, we had one percussionist in our school that went there, really talented," and we were all excited for him. I said, "Oh, great, is he still there?" And he said, "No, he came back and had a nervous breakdown. He's not pursuing music anymore." And then he walked away.
Wait, is this a plug, or this is going to be have a happy ending here?
Right, I promise it turns out better. So in that moment, I remember thinking, okay, so this environment's going to be pretty challenging. Yeah. So I go to the University of North Texas, and just to kind of keep it very global for a moment, I remember looking around, and this young man is coming to audition me. He was a graduate student. His name is Jeff Prosperi. Paul Rennick is doing sectionals. In the first 3 or 4 center snare drums, it was Mike McIntosh, and all these people were on my bedroom wall in Yamaha posters.
You can't see, so everyone behind the camera right now has their jaws open.
Right. It was a who's who. Yeah. So Mike McIntosh, Ricky Rodriguez was one of our technicians. Yeah. Ben Moff. It is a cast
all
of
the
thousands.
Blue Devils, right?
All of the Blue Devils. Yeah. And then Jeff Queen would come to join us, and we all know what a fabulous player Jeff is. Yeah. So all these rock stars. And so I love telling this story because Jeff and I are close friends, and I owe Jeff Prosperi so much. We started playing together, and he stopped me after playing, and he said, "No one drums like that." And he pointed to my sticks. And I said, "Yes, sir, that's why I'm here to learn." He said, "Okay, just so you know." And he was preparing me that what they valued at North Texas, Paul Rennick, what they valued was understanding and tone and warmth and just all these different things that are important to all of us, but maybe not on the level that I had prioritized in my own practice. I was really valuing some other things in my own playing. And so sitting in with those incredibly talented people was humbling and exciting to me. And so I knew that I had two choices. I could be intimidated and say, well, this is not for me. I'm going to just stay in my comfort zone, or I'm just going to stay here and get my butt kicked by all these fabulous players that have a lot of experience and a lot of great ideas that I don't know yet. And so that's what I chose to do. So that night, the first night I auditioned, I met a young quad drummer by the name of Daniel Niemeyer. And Mr. Niemeyer and I have been fast friends ever since. I went to the Kmart on University Avenue. I bought him. This is a true story. I was so moved by watching all those people move differently, and the sounds that they were getting out of the drum was way different than my sound. Yeah. So I went to Kmart, I bought a mirror with Dan Niemeyer that first night that I auditioned in North Texas. I went into my apartment, I put it there, and I just started over. Wow. And I felt like a beginner. This is the sound that they're talking about. I don't sound like that, so I'm starting over. So I chose to be inspired by all these amazing players. And by the way, that was not just being in the snare line with, oh my gosh, I could probably name all 10 of those. Kevin Brubaker, Mike McIntyre, all the Blue Devils, and several of them had won individuals, and I'm just trying to hang on for dear life. But it didn't stop there. When I would go to practice marimba, I would go up into Music Practice North, and Shi Wu and I would be playing Bach fugues. And then I would go get a drink of water, and Keith Carlock was playing in the room behind me. And I realized these are some of the best individual players the world has right now. And so I'm just going to, I had enough self-awareness that I said, I'm just going to learn and befriend them and just soak in everything they're doing. And I think that was the magic of it, because my first wind ensemble rehearsal, the rest of the section came over to get to know me, because I'm this new guy from the Midwest in the Wind Symphony, and they said, what's your bag? And I said, I don't think I have a bag. So all these incredible musicians are so focused in all these different areas. And then one person said, well, maybe that's your bag, not having a bag, just being really well-rounded. Slang for like, what's your specialty? I don't have a specialty. I'm just trying to absorb and be well-rounded. And that became a little bit of my mission at that point, to be well-rounded and play in these groups and absorb as much as I could.
That's crazy, Jeff, to hear you say that, because one thing I was going to say to you is that one thing I've always admired about you is your well-roundedness.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it's more common now for students who are going to study music in school to be well-rounded. So you're expected to study theory and history and be able to play drum set and in the symphony orchestra.
Sure.
But maybe it wasn't as common in the day. And even when I was going to school, you had people who had bags. It's like, oh, I'm gonna take orchestral auditions, or I'm gonna be a snare drum fighter pilot, or I'm gonna be I'm just gonna be a teacher. You know, as if it's we say that jokingly, of course.
Yes.
What do you attribute that ability to be well-rounded? You just decided at that moment, like, that's what I'm gonna do, and then you just kept your eyes open and your ears open and soaked it all up, and that became your thing.
I was excited about possibility, because when I was at Michigan State, I was going to be an orchestral player, and I was ready to get in a practice room and practice colas until I wasn't ever going to miss. And then I discovered drum set. I recorded a couple of albums in Michigan with 2 bands, and I thought, this is my life. I want to tour. I want to be a session musician. Then I got to North Texas, and I saw all this fabulous playing there, and I thought, no, I want to do that. I want to do that. And it dawned on me that by being curious and really open to being as good as I can, I don't know what my future is, but this helps me decide it in a healthy, organic way.
So you take that training, you start teaching in the public school systems.
Believe it or not, I quit my senior year. So a lot of people don't know this. I was about to graduate from the University of North Texas. My spring semester, we had gone to PASIC. I had a great experience in all of the things that North Texas offers. And the senior year, I was deep into the semester, and I got a call from a band that I had recorded a record with. And they said, we got bigger, we got signed to a record label, we're going to go on tour. Would you consider coming to Nashville? And I said, well, thank you so much for considering me, but no, I'm about to graduate. And so the lead singer and the actual band manager said, just go to Target, buy the CD. Oh, sorry, CDs are these little, and so I did. So I drove to the Target in Denton, USA, and I bought the album. I popped it in my car, and I fell in love with the songwriting, the production, and I listened to the next track, and the next track, and the next track. Long story short, I said, I am interested in this band, but I'm halfway through the semester. The record label, the band's management called the School of Music and set up an appointment. So I went in, they were on speakerphone, we had it all worked out. Then we went to the bursar's office and they gave me all of my money back for the semester on grounds of a, quote, rare professional opportunity. So my dear friend Jim Pecora, thank you Jim, in the middle of the semester packed my stuff up. I dropped out of my senior year of North Texas and we moved to Nashville where I started rehearsing for the band's second album.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And so we're going to have to go down that rabbit hole in another episode of this. So if you enjoy this, please let us know in the comments down below, and we'll bring Jeff back on so he can tell us the whole touring, because I know of you after that chapter where you're teaching in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
Colleyville, is that right?
Colleyville Heritage, yes, sir.
And so if you were in that chapter of the Texas system, you knew of Colleyville from, down in Houston. And how would you describe that chapter of your teaching career?
Yeah, fortunate to be around hardworking students, and then very similar to our early part of their conversation, I surrounded myself with people like Arjuna Contreras, Dan Niemeyer, Will Cooley, Matt Moore, all the different private, Doug Bush, it just goes on, and Dan Dara, all those fabulous teachers. We just worked well together, we leaned on each other, and we pushed the kids as much as we could, and it was a really, really thrilling experience.
Tell me if this happened to you. When I went from full-time teaching to changing positions, which I'd love to get into your consulting that if you know of Jeff now, I usually see a photo of him sitting on a plane on the way somewhere or coming back from somewhere and moving into that consulting role. But when I left full-time teaching, I didn't know how much it would affect me. And I dreamed about my students for months and months and months afterwards.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had dreams of myself teaching them in class or grading theory assignments or them coming to me and needing something. But how tough was it for you to transition from teaching full-time at your home base and saying, I'm going to set out for a new adventure?
Yes, really, really great question. The student side, I didn't miss at all because I was still going back into the classroom. So I was able to scratch that itch because I was with hardworking percussion directors that I was just there to listen to and help however I could. So I didn't miss the student experience because I was back in with students. The psychology behind now I'm freelance or I'm starting my own company, that, my friend, that was a whole nother mindset and adventure in and of itself. But the actual pedagogical relationships, that didn't really change other than, oh, Mr. Ausdemore is here less. He's here once a month. He's here once a week rather than here comes Mr. Ausdemore every day, second period or what have you. So
you get to be fun, Mr. Ausdemore, not mean dad, Mr. Ausdemore.
Exactly, like the grandparent role, right? You spoil the kids.
Have you guys cleaned up? Look at this place. It's a mess. Let's go. Come on.
Exactly. So yeah, that was a really easy transition pedagogically, but in terms of like starting a company or saying to my wife, hey, what do you think about this? Because we've had these 2 salaried incomes and now this is a crazy new adventure. And I grew up in a family that was not entrepreneurial. So my parents are really, really hardworking folks that did things that were really by the book. U.S. military. My father's a very heavily decorated war veteran. He was an officer. My mother is a nurse, and they just worked to the bone their whole lives. And they were incredible role models to me and still are. They're wonderful people, but didn't have that entrepreneurial background. So I just leaned on people that I knew were doing it, and I just, like anything, I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to soak in what I can learn from you as much as possible. And every day that never changes.
What do you know now about being a freelance consultant?
Sir?
That maybe you didn't know that if you could go back and tell yourself now? Because I see a lot of friends and colleagues who are, have a career change. And they're trying that they still love to teach, but they're going to try it in this new manner.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give first-year consultant Jeff?
Yes. So this is broken down into 5 different components, but all 5, and this is the monetary, this is the career path, it's the fulfillment. There's all kinds of smaller categories, but if you wrap all 5 of those smaller components into a global philosophy, the global philosophy is we are here for a finite time on this planet. And if you feel like you can be of service in a greater capacity, lean into it, don't apologize, and absolutely go and give it your all.
I can feel us going down this route, and I know Jeff will also be too humble to mention this, but Jeff recently came out with his first book.
Oh yes, yeah.
And can you tell us about the book? And
sure.
is it being inspired from these experiences?
It absolutely is, Way. So Breathe, Grow, Share is just essentially a compendium of what I learned. And what I continue to learn on a daily basis from my students and my colleagues. So Breathe, Grow, Share is literally the first part of us as physiological human beings, and what can we do to be in our best state, our neutral state, our state of homeostasis in terms of nutrition and meditation or prayer, or whatever speaks to you to be your best self, sleep, energy, mindset. Grow is that next level of how can I show up for my students if I'm not pushing myself intellectually, mechanically, from a demonstration standpoint, so on and so forth. And then Share is finally tying those two experiences to being a very clear mouthpiece so I can deliver it in a way that affects the most kids. And so Breathe, Grow, Share is a whole lifetime, really, but 20 years of teaching in a very, very hopefully helpful manner that I wish I had when I was that age. And I was trying to navigate, I care about my kids, so I'm going to neglect myself. I'm going to put myself last, because we do that as teachers, right? Great people and great teachers do that inadvertently. And the irony, and you can insert silly platitudes all day long, but they're all true. You can't pour from an empty cup, so on and so forth. All of them are true. And what I like to talk about in the book is just because something is really eye-roll-esque or really pithy or very, very overly common, it doesn't mean it's less true. And so diving into those concepts, the irony is your students win when you actually put yourself first, because you show up for them much, much more whole. And so the whole book is just a real idea of how do we show up as our best selves, how do we continue to grow for their sake, and then share that with them in the end. That's really what the book is in a nutshell.
Amazing. Well, I've had a chance to read it, so I'll make sure that I'm going to pick up a copy.
Great.
We'll put all the
ordered it on Amazon too.
Thank you, Dre. Thank you, Dre.
We'll put all the information down below for where you can pick up your own copy.
Oh, thank you.
And this is for students, it's for teachers,
Sir.
It's for parents, basically anyone who's in service to
Sure.
other people,
Yes.
but they're also in the service of themselves.
That's right.
Growing, learning, breathe, grow, share.
That's exactly right. You nailed it perfectly. In fact, I teach a music philosophy class for my seniors at New Mexico State University, and we just went over chapter 12 as a class.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I sense a video course coming out of the book.
I would love to.
It's so
Yeah.
fun.
I'm really proud of it just because it's trying to help folks. That's it.
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
I know Jeff has a dinner appointment, and he's very gracious. He's come to do this interview with us at PASIC. I'll just wrap up with a couple more questions,
Yes,
because
of course.
this could go on for another 30 minutes or 60 minutes for sure. Can you tell us about your role right now through Ausdemore Music, how you
yes.
travel around the country, how
sir.
you're helping students?
Yes.
And then one more question I'll tee back up is
Okay.
the work that you're doing now on both sides of drum corps, when you went from judging to now helping on the performance side of the
Yes,
drum
sir.
corps.
So Ausdemore Music is a catch-all for all the disparate musical adventures in my life. So really, Ausdemore Music started out as a proprietary publishing house. So when I compose something for, if I have a commission for a percussion ensemble or what have you, that's where I house all my works. Well now, fortunately, because the good people of C. Allen and Tap Space are so kind to help me with that, that's great. But my consulting and arranging and composition is all through Ausdemore Music. But now, as we talked about the other day, through the initiative of StriveMind and my experience as a consultant, Ausdemore Music has now kind of taken on that role in a different capacity, but whatever I choose to call it, it's just about spending time with music educators and educators in general, because without them, this society just falls flat on its face. So it's just a holding house for how I catalog the different goings-on in my life.
So, as an educator, I can hear that voice as you were running the judging room today.
Oh, yes.
You were judging individuals.
Sir.
And for anyone who can imagine that you've got to get in front of everybody and play your solo in front of a room of your fans and maybe your harshest critics and a very, I don't want to say intimidating, that's maybe not the right word, but someone decorated judging panel, it can feel intimidating. But I'm sitting there watching you, and you're so inviting. You say, good afternoon. insert name, would you like to play a few notes before we get started? I mean, it was just so inviting and warm. You can hear you putting the player at ease before you start.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you talk about when you're making judges tapes? What is kind of your goal through communicating to the students?
Wow, what a great question. And fortunately, we'll be discussing a lot of this in the panel discussion tomorrow, but it's really about trying to put myself in the perspective of who's listening. So I always make the assumption that any tape I make for a junior high group, to the Blue Devils, to Broken City, to Stephen F. Austin High School, it doesn't matter who. I want to think about, I'm a freshman that I've never heard a judge tape before, what can I get out of it? And then also, what can a director get out of it as well? And so I try to gear it, the psychology and the encouragement aspect, with a lot of specificity as well. So I try to balance that line, and then the three roles in a DCI, WGI are teacher, and then counselor, and then critic, depending on the skill level of the group that you're adjudicating. In my humble opinion, across all the acronyms that I judge in, I really firmly believe that you can be a teacher or a counselor or a critic with an incredibly pointed, encouraging tone that people are still getting a lot out of it. It's just the tolerance level for what they can achieve given that paradigm adjusts. That's it. The encouragement, the heart of a teacher, being on their team for those 8 minutes, that's all part of the psychology and really the fun of being a judge. That, to me, is the most incredibly fortunate and humbling thing, to be in the best seat in the house, listening to the finest performers of the world, or beginning percussionists out there giving it their best and their hearts on their sleeve, and just encouraging them through the vernacular that best suits them. That is the whole reason I judge.
And what is it like going from the judging side of things to now being on the performance side of the activity? Can you tell us who you were working with?
Yes. So before I started to judge for Drum Corps International or WGI, I was the arranger for the Blue Knights. And that was, I consulted with them from 04, 05, I think, or so. And then I kind of took over the percussion program from 06 to 2010. And then shortly after, I started judging for DCI. Now, in my second season back, or third season now, I'm back with the Blue Knights after judging for Drum Corps International for many, many years. And to answer your first part of the question, they really inform each other. And so the perspective of being on this side of the microphone, so to speak, informs my choices in terms of the sheets and being competitive, of course. But I really think in terms of building empathy, I think that reciprocity between every great competitive educator understands the other side of adjudicating that same environment. So I think they work hand in hand, and I really, really have grown a lot by just trying to live in both worlds, like so many of them do. Gosh, I can think about the people like Tom Rarick and Scott Johnson, and the list goes on, Julie Dava, it just goes on and on and on and on. They have a hand in some sort of creative or educational space, and then they get to flip the script, and then they get to see it through a completely clear lens, and then they switch different seasons. It's an incredible place to be, and I don't take it for granted 1 second of the day. I'm very fortunate.
So on the idea of seasons, I'm personally in the season of starting a business, the entrepreneurial journey.
Sir. Yes.
Do you have any advice for me?
Believe in yourself, pay yourself first, invest in you before you pay anyone else. And so there's the financial piece of it, there's the emotional piece, which I think is harder to bet on yourself than to do these pathways in terms of what society has laid out for us. But the United States has so many opportunities in so many little crevices that we highlight certain crevices and less in others. And so my advice to you is based on who you are as a father and as a husband, as an educator, and as a human being. And so I know you fairly well now, and my advice to you is to lean into your gifts. And if you lean into your gifts, everything works out in the end, as long as you're responsible and you're always thinking about a plan. And so my biggest advice is to continue being just a completely genuine, sincere, talented, badass person that you are.
Jeff, you're too kind, man. Thanks. All right, the restaurant's calling. They're saying, Mr. Ausdemore, table for two ready. Jeff, thanks again for this. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time with us, and we'll be sure to have to do this again.
My pleasure. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Right, thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
That's fun.
Yeah, man. That was awesome.
Fun.
Thanks.
That's fun.
Oh,
yeah,
I feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Let's do it.
Say, you know, at the end of the Grinch Stole Christmas, every time I'm around Jeff,
the heart
just grows.
I know, for sure.
No, he's great, man.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Sure.
I'm just humbled to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Thanks for your work, Carl. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Tonalities, the melodic, riding the space.
Yeah. Melodic writing, not exactly a thing that's...
Great to see you, Tom.
Flattered to hear you, Tom. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
We all love you.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hey, be careful. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Legend alert. My goodness.